Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into one of the most colossal, controversial, and wildly fascinating megaprojects of the 20th century. We're talking about a structure that was supposed to be a literal utopia, a shining symbol of a city taking a massive leap into the future. I'm talking, of course, about Montreal's Olympic Stadium. We're going to explore the massive gap between the grand dream of this iconic building and the incredibly complicated reality that followed. 1.61 billion Canadian dollars. Yeah, you heard that right. That is the staggering, astronomical final cost to build, repair, and pay the interest on this single stadium complex. When it was finally paid off, it stood as the second most expensive stadium literally ever built in the world, surpassed only by London's Wembley Stadium. So, the obvious question here is, how on earth did one stadium cost that much? How does a grand Olympic dream turn into a decades-long financial saga? And how does a building officially nicknamed the Big O earn the much more cynical nickname the Big O? Well, that's exactly the mystery we're unpacking today. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the grand Olympic vision, then look at how it became the Big O, check out the cursed stadium roof, dive into decades of historic events, and wrap up with where the stadium stands today. Let's get right into it. Part 1. The Grand Olympic Vision, a Utopian Design. So back in the 1960s, Mayor Jean Drapeau wanted to bring Major League Baseball and the '76 Summer Olympics to Montreal. But to survive those brutal Canadian winters, he absolutely needed a massive covered stadium. To make it happen, an under-the-table deal was struck with French architect Roger Taillibert. And Taillibert wasn't just drawing up some boring concrete bowl. His design was this absolute masterpiece of organic modern architecture. It's a biological concept, basically blending plant and animal forms using vertebral structures and sinews to create a true architectural marvel. And the crown jewel of this whole shebang? The Montreal Tower. This thing reaches 165 meters into the sky and leans at a gravity-defying 45-degree angle. It's actually still the world's tallest inclined structure today. But it wasn't just there to look cool. This unprecedented engineering ambition had a very specific purpose. The tower was designed to suspend a massive retractable roof using cables over the floor below. For the 1970s, that was basically science fiction. Part 2. Becoming the Big O, the financial reality. Now, what's really interesting here is the brutal contrast between the utopian dream and what actually happened. Back in 1970, the initial projected cost was 134 million Canadian dollars. Seems somewhat reasonable, right? Well, cue the massive strikes, skyrocketing raw material costs, and an architect who completely refused to compromise on his vision. By the time the stadium opened for the '76 Olympics, unfinished, I might add, costs had already blown past $1 billion. The final paid-off cost, including all those repairs and the interest, that whopping $1.61 billion we talked about earlier? So how do you even pay for something like that? Well, it took a 30-year journey. In May 1976, the Quebec government rolled out a special Olympic tobacco tax. Over the decades, 8% of all cigarette tax revenue went straight to paying this thing off. But get this, in a brilliant twist of irony, the final payment was actually delayed in 2006 because a new public health indoor smoking ban curtailed the exact tobacco tax revenue they were using to pay down the debt. You honestly couldn't script that. The debt was finally cleared in November 2006. Part 3. The Cursed Stadium Roof, an Engineering Reality. Remember how I mentioned the stadium opened for the Olympics without its roof? Yeah, the materials literally languished in a French warehouse until 1982. And when they finally installed this 66-ton orange Kevlar retractable roof, it was a profound disappointment. It couldn't operate in winds over 40 kilometers an hour. Because of this fatal engineering flaw, the grand retractable roof was only successfully opened and closed a mere 88 times in its entire history. And the hits just kept coming. 7,453, that is the insane number of individual tears this roof had accumulated by the year 2017. It ripped constantly. Rain would just pour right into the stadium, which, completely defeats the entire point of building a covered venue in the first place. And this brilliantly illustrates just how fast the physical disasters escalated. In 1991, support beams snapped and a 55-ton concrete slab crashed onto an exterior walkway. By 1998, they totally gave up on the retractable Kevlar, ripped it out, and put in an opaque, non-retractable blue roof. Problem solved? Nope. Just a year later in 1999, a huge portion of that new roof collapsed under heavy snow, dumping ice straight onto workers setting up the Montreal Auto Show. Unsurprisingly, the auto show packed up and permanently fled the venue after that. Part 4. Decades of Historic Events, the Cultural Legacy. Despite all the falling concrete and ripped fabric, the stadium actually hosted some incredibly vibrant moments. I mean, for their 1977 opening game, the Expos had to literally hacksaw the locks off the doors to get in. But you really get a sense of the sheer scale of the building when you look at these crowds. Over 78,000 people packed the house for Pink Floyd in '77. Later that year, over 68,000 braved a transit strike and freezing weather for the CFL Grey Cup. From a 61,000-person soccer final in 2015 to 55,000 gathering for a Pope John Paul II youth rally in '84, it was the undisputed gathering place for the province. And if you were a baseball fan, the Montreal Expos' tenure was completely wild. When you arrived from the Metro, an oompa band would be playing the Happy Wanderer. If an opposing pitcher tried to hold a runner at first base, the stadium's sound system would literally cluck at him like a chicken. But the actual playing conditions, absolutely brutal. The AstroTurf was essentially a super thin carpet sitting right over rock-hard concrete that just destroyed players' knees. And before the roof was finished, players literally had to dodge massive patches of ice on the field during early spring and late fall games. Those terrible conditions definitely contributed to the team finally leaving for DC in 2004. Oh, and we absolutely have to talk about August 1992. Metallica and Guns N' Roses co-headlined this massive show. During Metallica's set, frontman James Hetfield was accidentally burned by improper pyrotechnics and had to be rushed to the hospital. After a super long delay, Axl Rose of Guns N' Roses played a shortened set and just walked off the stage, citing audio issues. Well, about 2,000 angry fans decided to riot. They overturned police cars, set bonfires inside the stadium, and ended up causing $600,000 in damages. Just a wild piece of history. Part 5. The Stadium Today, the Modern Reinvention. So the Expos might be gone, but planners have actually managed to reinvent this incredibly flawed structure into a highly functional hub. Today, the stadium floor is a 204,000 square foot main room with absolutely no columns in the way. That is a dream for massive trade shows and exhibitions. It boasts 4,000 indoor parking spaces, a 100,000 square foot staging area where transport trucks can drive straight onto the floor, and direct indoor connections to 2 separate metro stations. It is a wildly practical rental facility today. And they aren't done modernizing it either. In 2023, the stadium installed a brand new permanent synthetic playing surface certified as FIFA Quality Pro. As Alain Larochelle of the Olympic Park pointed out, this makes it the only sports facility in Quebec with that certification and one of just 5 in all of Canada. So it's an elite venue for major soccer matches like CF Montreal games, completely up to top-tier industry standards. So, you're probably wondering, with all the history and all the problems, why don't they just tear the thing down? Well, it's built out of incredibly complex, pre-stressed concrete. You can't just take a wrecking ball to it or implode it. You'd have to carefully dismantle it piece by piece. Plus, the city's metro system runs directly underneath it. Estimates to demolish it range anywhere from $500 million to a mind-boggling $2 billion. Because tearing it down is basically impossible, the government recently approved an $870 million plan to build a brand new, highly durable roof to keep the stadium going for another 50 years. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. You've seen the billion-dollar price tag, the 7,000 roof tears, the riot, but you've also seen the massive record-breaking crowds, the pop culture history, and just how unmatched its modern utility is. So, what do you think? Is an $870 million new roof a worthy investment to save a deeply flawed yet undeniably iconic piece of architectural history? Thank you so much for exploring the Big O with me today on this explainer. Keep learning, and I'll catch you next time.